Students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is 1960s counterculture, and here are your objectives. Please pause the video, look these questions over, and get ready to copy some vocab terms and take some notes. The term counterculture refers to a way of life that goes against the values held by most people in society. And the most people in society we call the mainstream. During the 1960s, a certain type of counterculture was widespread in the US and in other Western countries. The followers of the counterculture are called hippies. Most, though not all hippies, were young, white, and middle class. Remember the idea of conformity? Like the Beat generation before them, the hippies were reacting to the conformity of the 1950s and early 1960s. Now let's look at some values of the counterculture that hippies followed. Though not all hippies were the same, most shared at least some of these values in common. And the first value is the rejection of consumerism and of the American dream. Hippies argued that money does not bring happiness and that other things in life were more important than becoming wealthy. Hippies had little interest in the American dream of working hard in order to succeed financially. The second value is pacifism, the belief that violence is never justified. Most hippies opposed the war in Vietnam, and they opposed war in general, and they showed it by flashing peace signs. The third value is communal living, which means living with other people and sharing property. Hippies rejected the suburban lifestyle where every family owned their own home. They preferred to live in groups, cooking together and sharing food and other things. Communal living was a little bit like communism on a small scale. The next value is the sexual revolution and free love. The sexual revolution of the 1960s challenged prevailing ideas about sex and promoted the idea that sex was good, not shameful. And similarly, the idea of free love challenged traditional ideas about relationships. Free love said that people should be able to have sex with anyone they wanted, unrestricted by marriage. The next value is an interest in spirituality instead of organized religion. Hippies sought a personal identification with spirituality, and they were especially drawn to Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism that lack the hierarchical organization of many Christian denominations. And the last value is experimentation with psychedelic drugs. Hippies argued that drugs, especially psychedelic drugs like LSD, which is also called acid, could offer humans new insights by freeing them from the constraints of mainstream society. Some hippies encouraged Americans to turn on, tune in, and drop out. Woodstock was a music festival where thousands of hippies gathered in the summer of 1969. The festival took place on a farm about 2 hours north of New York City, and it was a defining moment for the counterculture of the 1960s. We'll look at some footage of Woodstock in class. And the last word today is generation gap, a widespread difference of opinion between the young and the old. In other words, generation gap means that young people and old people disagree on many things. Like the flappers of the 1920s, the hippies were mostly young, and the mainstream culture that they were rebelling against was the culture of their parents. So a lot of kids in the 1960s had disagreements and conflict with their parents. And although there's always some generation gap in society, it was especially wide in the 1960s. All right, now it's time to review the objectives. If you don't know the answer to any of them, just rewind the video and look again. And remember, make love, not money. Bye, students.